Okay, so now let's introduce the social factors, otherwise known as the S in ESG. To put it simply, this is a consideration of how our business models are affecting people. Now, at their core, social factors are about human rights and equity, including how an organization's policies and actions impact individuals, groups, and in some cases, society as a whole. Embracing social responsibility helps companies build trust and maintain strong relationships with their stakeholders. It also positions them as drivers of positive change within their industries and communities. And additional transparency relating to social factors means that stakeholders, regulators, and the public in general are able to gain insights into a company's commitment to ethical practices, the quality of the work environment, and whether or not they're contributing to the well-being of society. As a result, that scrutiny prompts business leaders to make better decisions that are focused on more long-term incentives. This cycle of transparency, scrutiny, and empathy means that companies that prioritize social factors often listen to and enact stakeholder feedback, leading to better products and services, better risk assessment and mitigation, and ultimately demonstrate a higher aptitude for long-term sustainability and resilience. But how does this really work, practically speaking? Well, in a business context, considering social factors means examining all the interactions that a company or business has with people and measures or considers them against principles of ethics, justice, and care for well-being. This can be as basic as how a company treats its employees or as far-reaching as their impact on customers, partners, and other stakeholders. And it considers topics like inequality, working conditions, human rights, product safety, community relations, supply chain transparency, and more. Now, ESG social performance indicators can include things like diversity, income inequality, workplace injury rates, philanthropy, and labor practices of suppliers. So the goal of these factors is to measure how well the organization is meeting its human obligations and operations, global supply chains, and local communities. Organizations that successfully adopt the social pillar of ESG recognize that business operates within the context of a society that is often inherently inequitable. So this means that some individuals are subject to more systemic inequalities and injustices than others, and therefore businesses have some responsibility to consider whether or not they can address any such inequalities within the regular course of their operations. Companies who do not do this are increasingly being accused of actually upholding such systemic inequality, and thus drawing ire from customers, employees, and investors, regulators, and other key stakeholder groups. But let's be clear. The conversation around social factors in business has received a lot of pushback. Some question the subjective nature of various social indicators or the variability in how companies are defining, measuring, and implementing their, quote, social strategies. And it is true that some social factors may not be as easy to measure as environmental or governance issues, at least not currently. But there are several trends driving how companies define and report on social impact to their stakeholders. For example, in many parts of the world, social issues have been enacted into law, including standards regarding minimum wages, worker health and safety, anti-slavery or forced labor practices, whistleblower protections, data privacy, and many, many more. But it's important to note that in the best examples, a company analyzing and creating policies relating to the social impacts of its operations does not simply rely on compliance with regulations or implementing policies. It goes beyond that, encouraging companies to create a positive impact by fostering a culture of inclusivity, promoting fair labor practices, supporting human rights, and engaging with communities to address their needs. So these days, companies have a lot of external pressure, but not only to perform, but to perform well, meaning that people are not just looking at how much revenue a company generates, but increasingly on how that revenue is generated. Some examples of these external pressures include customer and partner expectations, boycotts, pressure from NGOs and lobby groups, etc. So if your goal is to build organizations that thrive and grow over the long term with sustainable business models and practices, it is increasingly important that we consider not only the environmental and governance impact of these organizations, but the human or social impact as well.